Well, warm welcome to today's talk. It's Wednesday, the 1st of February. Now, we now know that vitamin D supplementation provides substantial benefit in terms of reducing the risk of admission to intensive care during the coronavirus pandemic. 72% is the probable figure, certainly substantial. And it probably also gives us a 51% protection against death, vitamin D supplementation. Now, on this channel, we've been talking about vitamin D since we started the channel in 2007, a long time ago now, and we've been talking about it throughout the COVID pandemic period of time. Now we have this new meta-analysis from Italy, definite protection against admission to intensive care for patients that are ill or hospitalised. I now believe it's unethical for authorising bodies, Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Authority and FDA and people like this around the world, not to advise vitamin D supplementation for poorly people and arguably for the whole population. I believe it's now unethical that they don't do that, but they're not doing that. They are recommending treatments that are less efficacious, but they're not recommending vitamin D. And vitamin D is safe and effective. We've got to be careful how we use the term safe, but vitamin D is about as safe as cabbage or eating anything else. It's just a nutrient, but we get it from the sunshine. That's why we're short of it. We're short of it in the Northern Hemisphere over winter because we don't get it from the sun. That's why we need to supplement it. Personally, at the moment, I'm taking 4,000 units of vitamin D a day. That's 100 micrograms. And I take that in combination with 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 as well. So let's look at the evidence here because it is now definitive. It's from this paper here. And it's an Italian paper, leading Italian doctors and scientists. Why is it all that all this work comes from places? We're going to look at work from today from Spain, Saudi Arabia, Italy. Nothing from the United States, nothing from the United Kingdom. Why not? It really begs that question. Why not? Anyway, this is the paper here. All available. Download it for yourself. PDFs available. Definitive evidence and meta-analysis and trial sequential analysis. Now, this trial sequential analysis is sort of an add-on to meta-analysis, and it allows us to account for the degrees of uncertainty in the data and to make predictions based on that. So it's really quite clever. Thankfully, it's all done by computer. There's programs to do it. Anyway, this is in Italy. So various studies have shown this association between vitamin D deficiency and bad outcomes. Vitamin D plays a crucial role in immune function and inflammation. Simple statement of fact. Recent data suggests a protective role of vitamin D against bad outcomes. That's what this study is about, and it found out, yes, it does protect. This is what we call a nutraceutical approach. So using nutrients as pharmaceuticals. It's a term I like. Now, of course, a lot of nutrients are necessary because if we're short of nutrients, then the immune system's not going to be optimized and not work in a proper way. But vitamin D, as well as optimizing the immune system, actually has additional benefits in protecting against infection and also protecting against excessive inflammation and cytokine storms. So promote the immune response and reduce the inflammatory response. We know it does that. Anti-inflammatory. It's also antioxidant. When you really produce a lot of waste-free radicals, and so to mop those up with antioxidants is a really good idea. And it also has immunomodulatory properties. This is now beyond speculation. We are now in the realms of definitive science in terms of these activities of vitamin D. Now, immune boosting and optimizing immune function. Vitamin D maintains pulmonary barrier, so the organism's less likely to get in the first place, in this case SARS coronavirus 2, but we now know that this works against a whole range of viruses and probably bacteria as well. This is for everything. COVID, yes, this data shows that it provides a 72% protection against against admission to intensive care in SARS coronavirus 2 infection, but it also works against a wide range of other infections. We have to use this more widely. Determines the production of antimicrobial peptides, so these are peptides, are small proteins. Enhances neutrophil activity, essential white blood cell, of course, and shifts the adaptive immune response to more T helper cells, T helper 2 cells. T helper cells promote all aspects of immunity. The T helper cells are a bit like a conductor. They conduct the immunological orchestra and promote all sorts of immune function. Anti-inflammatory effects. Now, this is interesting. Vitamin D, adequate vitamin D, reduces the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and increases the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines. So these are interleukins, various interleukins. These ones are pro-inflammatory. They increase inflammation. So vitamin D reduces their production. These ones here are anti-inflammatory cytokines. So the anti-inflammatory cytokines, their production is increased. So it reduces the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and it increases the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines. So we don't get these cytokine storms that have been killing people. The lower the vitamin D at baseline, the more effective it is. Just think of all those poor people that died in nursing homes that have been stuck inside for the last year or two, hadn't been exposed to any sunshine. The vitamin D levels will be in their boots. And basically there was no substantial supplements given, despite what we were calling for very early on in the pandemic. High-risk interventions were carried out. Very, very safe interventions like vitamin D, zinc, basically ignored. It really is a scandal. It's a total scandal. Absolute disgrace. Reduces asthma exacerbations, prevents acute respiratory infections, we believe of all sorts, certainly influenza as well as COVID. And influenza now, so we need to optimize the population's vitamin D levels to reduce influenza. And it reduces the complications of infections. Now, as well as that, this is another study here, a COVID-19 and vitamin D systematic review, another systematic review. The rates of positivity in the tests were significantly decreased in the intervention group as opposed to the non-intervention group. So the PCR tests were less likely to be positive. So vitamin D is actually protecting against infection here. Relative risk 0.46, so that's what, a 54% protection against infection in the first place. Better than other treatments which are currently being recommended. Why is this not being shouted from the rooftops by our regulatory authorities, who I believe now are acting unethically in not giving this advice? Conclusively, this paper says, direct quote, COVID-19 patients supplemented with the vitamin D, fewer rates of ICU admissions, less mortality and less positivity. Well beyond the realms of speculation here. Meta-analysis and trial sequential analysis, getting back to the original paper that we're looking at. So they want to better explain the strength of the associations, which they can do, of the protective role of vitamin D supplement. And as we've said, they were examining risk of mortality and admissions to intensive care unit. This data was collected as a snapshot on 20th September 2022. So it was what information was available then. And they did all the risks of assessment. Now, how to adjust thresholds for significance in random clinical trials when the required sample size has not been reached. That's this new trial sequence analysis bit that was added on. So it adjusts the threshold of significance. So it works out how significant the result is depending on the sample size. And of course, being a meta-analysis, it pooled all the samples as well, got to samples that were definitively big enough, and they definitively said it protects against intensive care admissions. We basically know this now. Now, they looked at quite a few papers originally, but they settled on 5 main randomized trials. And here's the results, as we've said. Vitamin D administration, reduced risk of death 0.49, that's a 51% protection, isn't it? And against death, and vitamin D administration resulted in a decreased risk of ICU admission 0.28, and as we said, that's a 72% protection. Why is this not being used? A protective role of vitamin D in ICU admission. The trial sequence analysis of the protective role of vitamin D in ICU admission showed that since the pooling of the studies reached the definitive sample size, so it's the definitive sample size was reached, The positive association is conclusive. This is conclusive, according to this paper. Carried out in Italy, not carried out in the States, not carried out in Europe, certainly not carried out in Canada or Australia or New Zealand. We're getting left behind, folks. We're getting left behind. Now, the studies, this was the first study here, interventional study. That one was, I've put the links, check on all these. I'm not making this up. Check it out. Conducted in Saudi Arabia. Next study was this one, calcifidiol. Now, the calcifidiol is the already activated form. So as you probably know, when vitamin D is produced in the skin or taken by mouth, it must go to the liver. It's activated into calcifidiol. That's the more active form. So if you want it to work more quickly in someone that's already ill, you can give calcifidiol instead of the vitamin D. It'll be activated much quicker because sick people can't wait. So again, this could be used much more than it is. Why isn't it being recommended? Anyway, that study was done in Spain, not the English-speaking countries. This next paper was also done in Spain. This next paper was also done in Brazil. And the final study they used was in Spain. Now, why is this not being used despite the definitive evidence conducted from this paper? Why is it not being advised? Why is it not being shouted from the hilltops? I'm going to show you that in a minute. Well, on a completely separate topic, Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Authority in the United Kingdom is 80% industry funded. Of course, they have no vested interest. This is the national body that represents advises medicines and healthcare products throughout all of the United Kingdom, and it's 86% industry funded. Coincidentally, vitamin D, which is basically free, it's dirt cheap and is essentially completely safe, is not recommended. Other interventions which are associated with high levels of risk are recommended. 86% industry funded. When is this going to be addressed? This is outrageous. Now, I didn't mean to flash that before, but this is just a random street scene in Manhattan. So let's look at a random street scene now in Manhattan. Looks like a bit of a van. A few pictures on it. Oh, look, it's outside Pfizer World Headquarters. I believe this this video has veracity. Strange that it's outside Pfizer World Headquarters. Anyway, on a completely separate matter, let's hope there's not a scandal of massive consequence and intercontinental implications brewing in Manhattan. More on that tomorrow. For now, sorry, a bit over-emotional today. I do try and keep it cognitive, but it just gets to you from time to time. Things that we should be doing, but we don't bother. But there again, vitamin D is cheap, so why the heck should we? I've said enough. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching.